want to read you a little story, ladies and gentlemen. It's Friday. Put a smile on your face, folks. Freedom has arrived. The latest jobs bill, a plan to punish firms that ship jobs overseas, failed to clear a key procedural hurdle. Wow, that's interesting. It was crafted to address unemployment rate in the country in the run-up to the election. Donald Trump said he supported the bill as, quote, simple, common-sense effort to keep American jobs in America and to stop forcing taxpayers across the nation to pay for giveaways that reward companies for sending American jobs overseas. Oh, wait a minute. That's not Donald Trump. That's Harry Reid. That's not today. That was September 29, 2010. And the title by Lori Montgomery at the Washington Compost, Outsourcing Bill Fails in the Senate. I've been explaining over the recent weeks that progressivism, or statism as I prefer to call it, and progressive populism, which I also call that, overlap in many respects. Now, its advocates and surrogates don't want to admit it, but it's true, and I'm happy to debate them right here on this program. What Harry Reid said 5.5 years ago is no different than what Donald Trump is saying today. Hey, you know what? I'm done listening to you. That's it. Okay, whatever. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid defended the bill as a simple, common-sense effort to keep American jobs here in America and to stop forcing taxpayers in Nevada and across the nation to pay for giveaways that reward companies for sending American jobs overseas. Let's see, what else does it say here? The bill under consideration would have ended tax deductions for expenses incurred when the company shutter U.S. operations and shift the work abroad, imposed a new tax on products once made in the United States but now manufactured by foreign workers, and offered employers a 2-year payroll tax holiday on jobs repatriated from overseas. And it goes on. So here you have a quintessential job-killing so-called protectionist bill, which would have tariffs, a.k.a. taxes, on the consumer, a.k.a. the American people, that presumably would create jobs, a.k.a. kill jobs in the United States. Harry Reid, 5.5 years ago. Sounds exactly like Donald Trump and his surrogates in the media today. It's simple. It's common sense. Yeah. Stop the giveaways to these foreign companies, countries. Stop rewarding companies for sending jobs over. Yes, go get them! Get them! Now, I understand why liberal Democrats support this, because they've created this Leviathan. Now, the Republicans have too, but they've led the way, let's be honest. And so what they propose is more government, more tax revenue by taxing consumers, and punishing free enterprise. It's just bizarre to me that Republicans, you know what? I feel the same way. I'm a nationalist populist. No, what are you talking about? Oh, yes. And an agrarian. What does that mean? I'm going to grow vegetables in the backyard. Oh, you're an agrarian. A national populist. Nationalist populist. And I explained to you, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, how these were the predecessors, if you will, building the foundation for the modern progressive movement, or the statist movement. That's right. They created their own party, the People's Party. Oh, the People's Party? Who can vote against that? You're for people? Hey, they're for people. I'm voting for people. And eventually the People's Party lost, and this populist movement was, at least in part, devoured by the Democrats. And so here you have a perfect example of what I've been talking about. So what happens if you get a president who's a deal maker, who doesn't share certain basic fundamental principles, whether it's the economy or national security or what have you, and he's cutting a deal with Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, and he has the same mentality in this regard as they do? Well, you know what that means? We're up the creek without a paddle. It's a special type of creek. It begins with an S. You've heard of that one, right, Mr. Producer? We're up S Creek without a paddle. Because now we have the overlap of the progressive populists and the statist progressives. That is the far left and the, hey, we're a new movement. Those guys. When in fact what they are is they're embracing a Herbert Hoover economic policy. It's what it is. Herbert Hoover, Pat Buchanan, Ross Perot. But we're for America. Well, what are the rest of us for? We're not for America? We're for Americans. Well, so are we. Well, you must be elitist. Really? I don't come from an elitist background at all. My parents had to work hard for everything they had, and my father grew up in abject poverty. Do I have to do what every other host does? Okay, I'll do it a little bit. If you read any of his books, you know I did a foreword in one of his books, and I explained that as he would go to school, when he would come back, he'd walk about a mile to work at a cigar factory that was in his neighborhood, as did my grandmother, his mother. And he'd work there till about midnight, sometimes 1 in the morning. And by the way, no minimum wage, just letting the guy know. And if there had been a minimum wage, he wouldn't have had any work. And I know this sounds odd to people today as they drive in their cars and they enjoy a little sherry tonight on a Friday night. But times were tough, and they're tough today. And if the government intervenes, hey, we're going to make things better, typically it makes things worse. So my father, 13, 14 years old, he would not have had a job because of all these rules. But the family needed the money. That would be my same father, who's almost 91 years old, listening to me on the radio right now. That would be my same father who signed up during the war in World War II when he was 17 years old. That would be my same father who originally was embracing Trump and wanted Trump, and now he wants Cruz. He's his own man. I'm going to do what Mark does. No, he doesn't. And he calls me almost every night. This is a disaster. This is why the left supports it. Simple, common sense effort to keep American jobs here in America by taxing products and giving more and more money to the feds and having more and more people tell people what to do in this country. That'll create jobs. No, you know what that'll do? That will kill investment in the United States. It'll kill it. It'll chase more companies overseas, more jobs overseas, and less people overseas investing in this country. It's absurd. And you don't even have to believe me. Look at history. History's replete with examples. Again, we need to unleash what the federal government, the EPA, the Agriculture Department, the Energy Department, all these phony departments, these bloated, phony departments with their bloated budgets, kicking out 3,000 to 6,000 laws a year. They're the ones shutting down the coal mines. They're the ones shutting down the steel mills. They're the ones shutting down the oil rigs. They're the ones who are putting these incredible restrictions on our truckers all over the world. All over the country. Ask them. Ask a coal miner in Kentucky, in Ohio, and Pennsylvania, especially West Virginia. Ask them. Is the problem China? No, China wants to buy our coal, for God's sakes. No, the problem's the EPA. The problem's the Democrat Party. You ask truckers in this country if they have a problem with Japan putting them out of business. It's not Japan, it's the federal government. It's the EPA, yet again, and the Department of Transportation. They work against the American worker and the American citizen. Look at this disaster that occurs in our educational system. That's not due to China. That's due to the NEA and the AFT and the Department of Education and all these other liberal nitwits in this country. Our problems are self-created. They're imposed on us from within.